Good evening everyone and welcome to episode 14 of the Rounds Golf podcast. It's Swanee here and thank you for joining us. We're coming to you earlier than usual this week. It's Sunday night and let's be honest, the weather has been well dreich, to use a good Scottish word. It's been cold, it's been windy, we've had a ridiculous amount of rain, so I'm sure our listeners like us have had very little golf to talk about this weekend, or to play even, so let's do the next best thing and let's have an hour or so shooting the breeze on anything and everything we fancy when it comes to golf. Now tonight, Huggy, our resident pro, is absent, but I am pleased to say we have a very suitable replacement as our guest this week, a long-time scratch handicapper, or a scratcher as he was once referred to down at Uphall Golf Club. Yes, a UGC member, a joint course record holder, and also a very good mate of ours, Graeme Sminky Stevenson. Sminky, thanks for joining us, bud. How has your weekend been apart from quite wet?
Yeah, good call. Thanks for having me. No golf, obviously. We did have a winter medal on at Uphall yesterday that we decided not to play. The course was open. It's been quite a quiet weekend. Had the family round yesterday for a bit of Halloween shenanigans, and quite a quiet day today, so all good.
Well, no need to answer the door tonight, any geysers, because we're doing this podcast, gents, so definitely a win-win. Puds, I hope you're nearing full fitness, sir. Disappointingly no golf for you this weekend. How have you filled your non-golfing weekend?
Oh, mate, what a thrill-filled weekend it's been watching, I'm going to say about 8 episodes of a Danish serial drama on TV in subtitles.
Oh, man.
Plenty of folk will know it. It's called The Killing. It's old. It's fabulous. Okay. So that's been a lot, and a cheeky wee couple hours at the gym this morning just to, pretend to be slightly athletic.
Well, I hope you watch some golf in between watching the Danish TV series, yeah? Because obviously we need some of your expertise and chat on this podcast, yeah?
Little bits in here. I'm aware.
Fair enough. Bob, how's your week going so far, mate? I know we're obviously bringing our listeners a podcast earlier than usual. You're off down south this week, is that right?
Yes, thank you for accommodating this, and anything to avoid geysers, I guess, just to sit in a dark room and talk to you guys. So I'm good, although I have to say I've been living with, what can only be described as embarrassment really since our podcast last week, because as soon as I finished editing the podcast, apart from the fact I couldn't say George Kitsea's name correctly, I also foolishly suggested that he needed a good week in Portugal as defending champion to have a good chance at his card. Obviously, the error in that is, why would he need a big week to keep his tour card? He gets a 2-year exemption for winning it last year, so that was a bit of a... That kind of bugged me actually when I was listening.
Just
back
a
to that.
lack of Jimmy Hard K right there.
I know. So I basically I'm calling a penalty on myself. But it's also good as well that we've got Smink back. Up until very recently, Sminky had the honour of being the most listened to podcast that we've put together. So
the dulcet tones of the Sminker.
Obviously by popular demand, but I have to say as a general point, the actual response over the last few weeks has been quite incredible. So thanks to everybody that's actually tuned in and listened to whatever nonsense we've been slavering.
No, absolutely right, Bob. It's great getting some really nice feedback as well. So thank you to all our listeners. It's very much appreciated. And I've got to also call one on myself because I said last year, and Puds called me out, that Portugal obviously was not this weekend. It is next week. And I also said that the Mayakoba was this week. And of course it's not, because there's a Bermuda that falls in between. So apologies to our listeners for getting that incorrect information your way on the podcast. But lads,
I think it's what's called in the business having a Matt Fitzpatrick at the Ryder Cup, mate.
What, total nightmare. Fair enough. Now listen, no European Tour event this week. However, lads, the PGA Tour is in Bermuda and the Ladies European Tour is in Dubai. But for the first part of the show, we're going to take the opportunity on a quieter week in the world of golf to discuss major golf. In specific, the 4 gents majors that took place this year, and we'll have a wee look ahead to next year, as well as discussing some of the most debatable topics when it comes to men's majors. For example, who is the best player without a major? Who do we think deserves to win a major before their career finishes? And which major do the pros really want to win above the other three? So, no, I'm looking forward to this. Gents, will we crack on?
Let's do it.
Yep.
Okay, so the men's major championships, or as we refer to them, the majors, the four most certainly prestigious annual tournaments in professional golf. I guess the tournaments that every pro golfer wants to win, and I'm guessing there'll be a few pros that would probably exchange their half dozen normal tour victories for just one major championship on their record. And of course, 3 of the 4 are in the States, and with the recent reordering of the 4 majors taking place, they now all happen within 4 months, kicking off as normal with the Masters in April, and then finishing with the lone major outside of the States, our Open Championship in July. So I'm keen to have a chat about what you thought about this year, maybe have a wee look ahead to the venues and thoughts for next year, and I'll throw a couple of questions your way for discussion. So let's kick off with the Masters. I suppose the only major, lads, that takes place at the same venue every year in Augusta, and let's face it, what a venue it is. I mean, I think for me, there's no better time of the year for the golf season to kick off. Scotland, the first monthly medals taking place that weekend. It's always in the past, if I remember right, lads, been first monthly medal in, watch the golf, have a good few babies, first round of the Masters. So officially tells us it's time to get ready for the coming season. Puds, we'd never want that to change, yeah? The Masters is and always should be the major season opener, yeah?
Well, it obviously did change for us this year with the clubhouse not being there for us to do what we would normally do. So that was, something difficult for us this year. But yeah, it's the curtain raiser for the season. It's the first week of spring. It's everything's just glorious again, really, after coming out of winter. And obviously it was the first major getting fans back, which obviously made a massive difference after the previous Masters having been, closed doors. And as much as DJ's win was great, and it was nice to see him win at Augusta. Getting back some semblance of normality was. I would actually say that was probably the highlight of the whole thing, actually, because
I dare say Matsuyama wouldn't say the same.
No, of course. I mean, he wouldn't. Matsuyama obviously he played outstanding on the Saturday. That was where he cracked it. 65 on the Saturday, and he suddenly came from the pack, and from there on, I think. He maybe got dragged back to within 1 or 2 later in the back nine on the Sunday, but managed to see it out even with a bogey at the last. And again, I think other than what I've said about first major with fans back and that for me being more of a highlight than the actual winner, I dare say that that as has been referenced, the caddy. Possibly even overshadowed everything that Matsuyama had done in the end, because it was the caddy that obviously went viral.
That's right. I remember that. It was all over social.
All. And I think, it's not Matsuyama's fault, that he's not a native English speaker and can't really, you perhaps don't get the personality out of him to really get fully behind him, because you just can't really get to know him at all in the same way that everybody that gets interviewed, and you can get their personality and whatnot. So it's difficult. I like his game and I respect how good he is, but I suppose I find it a little bit difficult to give too much of a toss that he ended up winning with.
That's very, very honest, transparent feedback, Praise, and I would expect nothing less from you. But listen, you're absolutely right. Matsuyama, and he's an amazing golfer. I said it last week again. I've never seen a man who hits so many good shots with one hand coming off the club at the top of his finish. It's just ridiculous how many shots he hits like that go to 10, 15 feet. He is obviously a perfectionist. And the caddy, 100%. He got certainly a fair amount of social media coverage, but it was a lovely touch. And it was great to see, and things like that obviously will be shared across the world no matter, because it was great to see. But looking at the top 10, right, real interesting. Here's the wee starter quiz question for the evening. In your top 10, you've got the usuals that you would expect: Paddy Reed, Justin Rose, Leishman, Rahm, Schauffele, Spieth. Can you remember the unknown that pushed Matsuyama all the way? The American, who actually... Zalatoris, aye, absolutely. Nobody would expect it. Anybody who put money on him each way at the start of the week, even just a few quid, it would have been scary because...
Especially when you see him putting, Cole. I mean, it's frightening from short range.
Absolutely.
I mean, if anything within 2 feet, it's...
How he got where he got, how he actually gets where he gets at times, and especially on what you would probably universally agreed that the toughest greens to putt on in world golf. That's certainly the way they're talked up with the slopes and the speed and whatnot. And then maybe it is the case that I think it's been said that he can perhaps putt a lot better on fast greens than he can on slow greens, and that's why when we were watching, I mean, we'll come on.
But like myself,
we were watching the Open in particular. His putting at the Open was nothing short of 20 handicap stuff at times.
I mean, Bob,
also
I reckon over 18 holes in the Himalayas up at St Andrews, you could almost beat Zalatoris maybe. You need a wee bit of luck. Just putting. I'm not talking about full game here, but no, I've got to admit there's been a few since then where you've seen him putting for 3-4 feet, or maybe even shorter as well, where the putter seems to have been taking a sharp route inside, and it's just no looked pretty at all.
Had a little taser attached to him at times when he hits some of the short putts.
Just needs a wee aperitif before teeing off, just to settle the nerves, and he'll be all right. But lads,
anybody remember who the 36-hole leader was?
Ooh. Well, it was the little angry guy with the putter head as big as his feet.
Who on earth is that?
Who are you talking about?
Brian Harman.
Well, it wasn't actually. It was Justin Rose, but close.
Well, he was second then. He was tied second at that point.
But Justin Rose, despite the season he had, was leading the Masters halfway through it, and what went wrong for him after that? Because it was a bit of a car crash a season thereafter.
Aye, true. Never made the tour. Never made the FedEx playoffs at all. Was outside the top 125, wasn't he? But Brian Harman, he had a great start, 6 under, and then I see a couple of 74, so finished tied 12th. But I really, bar Zalatoris, everybody up there in that top 10 you would expect. Cameron Smith was there again, after having a great tournament the year before, six months before, when it was played in November, and he finished behind DJ. But what about the course? Lads, have you ever seen, and I spotted it a while ago and researched it again today, have you ever seen the Google Earth pictures of Augusta that are taken 10 days apart, where obviously the course is completely browned out, and then obviously 10 days later it's like the Augusta green that you would expect. 10 days before, completely brown, there's no sand in the bunkers, and then the same picture was taken for the same point in obviously the air 10 days later, and it was Augusta that we all know and love to see. It's just ridiculous how good they get it looking for that one tournament. But I think they then close the course for 6 months after the Masters has taken place. Not a great deal to be a member there, if I'm honest.
Well, they must have, the army of green staff they've got to turn that around, and the money they've got is just unlike anything else. I could imagine the Masters have got the biggest production budget, if you like, out of all the majors, including what the R&A have got, the USGA. The funds they've got at their disposal is just on a different scale. So they can do crazy things like that, and it's such a marvellous place to watch golf. You spoke earlier about the crowds being back. I was a massive fan of having no crowds at the end of 2020 because you saw so much of the course that you never get to see. You could see angles and different shots, the shapes, the different undulations. It was like watching a different event when Dustin won it.
I think it was all right as a one-off, but no, you wouldn't really want to watch that week in, week out.
So you're a crowd man.
You need the crowds, don't you? You need the roars, certainly, in Augusta.
Sminky, got a wee question for you, right? That's a little bit of a kind of unknown fact. As a match secretary, what do you think the course and slope rating is at Augusta?
Right, so it's par 72. I'm going to say...
Bear in mind, Greenburn's like 130 or something. So
well, true. I'm going to say it's going to be about 138 and I'm going to go for 77.
Wow, I'll tell you what, amazing. But here's the thing, Augusta is one of the few courses to have never been given an official course rating by the USGA. Its members use their own system. However, a guy
if it did, it would be 138 and 77.
Well, here's the thing, a guy from Golf Digest, former USGA senior director and inventor of the rating system, he came up with a course rating after playing it 78.1 and a slope rating of 137. So you were not far away at all. There you go, mate. So, here's another wee thing that I noticed that I'll just throw in. Listeners, here's one. It's widely known that CBS actually puts in the bird noises during telecasts to make Augusta seem like even more of a paradise than it actually is, because all the patrons on property say that they very rarely see any birds. Well, see a few birdies, but obviously no.
Does Jim Nance actually make the bird noises though?
It's just Jim Nance sitting in the butler cabin with a wee bird whistle, and that's it. But I mean, listen, it's the best for me viewing. I love the Open, absolutely, and for me, it's the very best major for the best viewing. The time of year it comes, the course itself, and how they get it looking. Are we all in agreement that is the best viewing you can hope for on a major? Is that one on?
I would agree. Yes.
Is that one on our bucket list, boys? That one we'd maybe love to attend. Maybe we're all 40 now. We've not quite made it to Augusta.
Correction.
10 years from now.
Correction. Some of us are not 40 yet. All right.
Okay.
And some of us are 41.
Bob, you'll be 40 soon, sir. Don't you worry about that. It's coming your way. I'm thinking, 10 years from now, Augusta might just be the bucket list. I mean, there's lots of packages out there. Whilst it's obviously not easy to get a ticket, you can certainly reach out to the top two, what would you say, golf agents, golfbreaks.com and Your Golf Travel. I'm not sure you're getting much change out of $5,000, and to get you a day at the Masters, and then obviously your accommodation, etc. for 5 days. Or you can take part in the guys, Stevie Moyer and Gary Marshall, take part in one of their US Masters Texas Scramble. We've played in a few boys, I think certainly, and they've put win your way to the Masters series. I think it's coming up for its 8th year. Full calendar of scramble events across Scotland, England, Wales and Northern Ireland. And for 4 of you, you're only 2 rounds away from Augusta. So it's well worth a try. And plus, we've chatted about it, Pudge, you get to play some great courses in the qualifying too. I was having a look.
Absolutely.
Who's on there? Lanark, Montrose, Nairn.
Cruden Bay.
Fraserburgh,
I think's maybe on it. There's a lot of good ones. I will revisit this topic later on though, Colin.
Oh, okay.
Specifically Texas Scramble.
Right, okay. Is that going to be your rant of the week?
You could call it a rant.
I feel it coming your way. Now, Puds, Masters 2022, it's obviously going to be the next major that comes.
Where is it, Cole?
What's that? Say again, Poodle.
Where is it?
I'm not sure, actually. I don't think the venue's been announced yet. Who are you thinking for? Who would you put your money on right now? Hard to tell. Obviously, 6 months away. But is there anybody you're thinking their game suits Augusta? There's no doubt. Is it going to be somebody from the top 10 in the world? Put it that way.
I'd like to think that McIlroy's light bulb moment at the Ryder Cup will inspire him to Augusta glory at long last.
Okay, I like it. I like where you're going with that one. I'm going to play it safe, and I think Justin Thomas deserves that another major. Anybody got any other guys that are going to put their money on?
John Rahm's about to be the favourite, isn't he?
Fair enough, Bob.
Best golfer in the
Mr.
world.
Statman, is anybody standing out to you just now for Augusta?
The only thing I would say is there's one guy I think deserves to win another major more than most right now, and it's Louis Oosthuizen after the season he's just had and the number of close calls he's had at Augusta, including playoff defeats. So, yeah, I would probably like to see Louis do it, but at the same token, it'd be good to see Rory get it on his CV.
We'll come on to Louis in a minute because I'm going to ask you who your thoughts are on the best major performer in 2021, because I think there's only probably two candidates. But yeah, let's move on, because the next major, the USPGA, now takes place in May after being moved from its August date. So it's now second major of the year, and it's predominantly played on courses, obviously, on the East Coast. I think it's been held in New York like 13 times, and only 11 times has it been held outside the eastern side. I think most recently was Hampden Park, where Morikawa got his first major last year. Now, this year, a belter of a course, belter of a championship, and probably a belter of a winner. I think nobody expected Phil the Thrill to take the spoils at 50, surely. Well, sorry, 50 years, 11 months and 7 days to be specific. I'm going to ask a question, right? So the field at the PGA Championship is regarded probably as one of the strongest in professional golf, because it's got routinely the highest strength of field rating, they call it, according to the official World Golf Ranking. But for me, and I mean no disrespect to the USPGA at all here, I'd probably consider it, let's be honest, the weakest of the four majors. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it struggles with its identity more than anything, because Augusta is Augusta. It's known for that. The Masters is the season opener and has that, as we've just discussed, that appeal. The Open Championship is unique in its own right. And the US Open tries to set itself up as the hardest test of the year. I think the PGA probably struggles to find its niche. And as a result of that, probably feels like the weakest of the four.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think it's probably set up most like a standard tour event. But this year at Kiwa, obviously 6 under won it, which is more the type of golf I want to view. But looking again at the top 10, the same names keep popping up. Justin Rose, John Rahm, Morikawa, Finau, Oosthuizen, Casey, obviously Mickelson. And I just realised again, I didn't remember, but the Ryder Cup captain, Paddy Harrington, was up there tied 4th he finished. He must be nearing 50 as well now, lad, surely.
Yeah, I think is he not?
Is he 50 already?
Yeah, I think if he's not, he's weeks away. I'm sure he's on the Challenge Tour imminently. In fact, he is. He was 50 at the end of August.
Aye, so I absolutely loved it. And of course, it had a wee bit of a story to it as well, because I think that's where the Koepka and the De Chambeau rivalry came to light when... what's his name? De Chambeau walked past him and muttered something, and that obviously kicked off a wee bit of a rivalry, which we'll come on to, because I think they've got, is it the match planned for end of November where they're going head to head? Absolute disaster.
Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Which again,
I just don't see the point in that. That's a complete money spinner. I won't be tuning into that whatsoever.
Didn't watch the Woods and Mickelson one. Haven't watched any of them. It's just that's not. Again,
if you're being cynical, you think, you know, a lot of, I think this feud is manufactured to then get this social media interest in them, to then set up a match that they'll then earn millions of dollars that they don't need.
I think again it's the US Tour feeding into effectively, you know, ratings, money, sponsorship. It's not feeding into golf fans, I would say.
No, and I wouldn't be tuning in. There's no doubt about that. I just think it's a money spinner. Does they deserve to be on TV? Fair enough. If you want to go and watch it up live, absolutely. But yeah, it's all about the majors, and the PGA heads to Southern Hills next year. Wee quiz question: who was the last major winner when a major was held at Southern Hills? Any clues?
Tiger.
It was indeed 2007. And then before that, do you remember South African winning a playoff against, I'm going to say Mark Brooks?
Huursen,
that's the one, absolutely. Now, listen, there's no doubt Southern Hills is a belter of a layout. You know, you don't host so many huge championships without being a proper layout, a great venue and a stiff test of golf. But here's my question. Should the USPGA explore moving around the world to showcase major golf outside of Britain and the US. Because the US PGA Tour, like European, plays all over the world. The Zozo was just held in Japan. They're off to Mexico as well. The Scottish Open is obviously going to be a co-sanctioned event between PGA Tour and European Tour next year. Should the US PGA explore that? Hoods?
Maybe,
thoughts?
but I think what I'd actually like to see is more of the coastal courses in the US being used for the US PGA, where they can be affected, by the weather ultimately, and the weather has a big factor in determining, what the winning score is and whatnot. That happened. The course and the weather at Kiowa obviously has a huge bearing on what the final score is that wins. It's a really difficult course and the wind can blow. I'd like to see it, in areas where it's a bit more subject to weather than, middle America, where it can be these fly it high, stop it, birdie fest type situations. As you say, more like just a routine PGA Tour stop.
Spinky, thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's merit in exploring that. Yeah, I mean, golf's obviously grown hugely in Asia.
We're going to come on to that one.
I think to take a major there. I mean, even if you look at the courses in Australia, Royal Melbourne, they're courses like that. I mean, they're so interesting and great to watch. I love this year's USPGA because it was Kiowa, and Kiowa I know from the Ryder Cup going back to '91. So it's a very exciting golf course. But is it going to be as great as Southern Hills, which I don't know much about the golf course, but quite often it's a kind of run-of-the-mill, as we've said, a kind of a standard tour event almost. Yeah. So I think going different continents, different courses can only make it more interesting for viewers.
No, absolutely. I think it's time just to explore it. I think there's a lot of stuff happening, and great that the PGA and European Tour are working closer together. But, with 3 majors in the States, I think it's time to look at taking the PGA outside. You're never going to move Augusta. You're never going to move the US Open. The Open Championship is always going to be played in the links course in the UK. The US PGA is the one major that you could just trial it, like they've done moving it to May, and it works. Let's just take it out of the US for a year and see what the response is.
That is the other thing, though. I know you're probably bringing it up later. I don't like it moving. Again, they moved it because of TV ratings and try to cram the FedEx in before the football season, and all this nonsense. I don't like the fact that it's moved at all.
Well, let's talk about it now. So you think the major order now with the USPGA moving to May from August, so that all majors are kind of finished within 4 months? So April to July. There's 8 months, therefore, with no majors at all. Is that right? Should they be spreading out more? You've got to have the Open Championship probably in the summer because it relies a wee bit on weather. You can't have it, obviously, probably in April or October or anything else. 4 months is a short space of time, and it's great, fantastic when it's there, but then you're left where we are now with 8 months with just, not a huge amount of brilliant golf to watch. So what do you think, Bob?
As much as we've effectively just slated it as the weakest of the majors, give me, 4 USPGAs instead of watching the FedEx Tour Championship playoff situation. Absolutely.
Unfortunately, I think we're flogging a dead horse because it's not going to move for the reason of money and
no, of course,
TV viewings. But it'd be interesting to know what it's done to its own TV ratings moving it. Probably not a lot, I'd imagine. But does the fact that majors finish in July and ultimately the PGA Tour's, curtain raiser, the FedEx, doesn't end till the end of September, do the casual golf fans switch off? Like, do we lose people for 2-3 months? I don't know.
You lose me.
Well, I'm glad we've got you contributing to the podcast week in, week out.
That's very, very true. But no, listen, we'll come on to a few other points mentioned at the end. The Wanamaker Trophy, quite an impressive. So Phil, obviously, I think that's Phil's swan song. I don't think, at nearly 51 years old, I'm not sure Phil. well, I don't think he's definitely not going to win another major. I'll be surprised if he wins another regular tour event. But he's taken the USPGA Senior Tour by storm. There's no doubt about that. But the Wanamaker Trophy, lads, have a wee guess at what you think it weighs in pounds?
Oh, pounds.
Pounds?
Oh,
nobody weighs in pounds.
Who's you? I mean, come on, let's get the metric and
Okay,
imperial
well,
out here.
14 pounds in a stone. There you go.
What about kilograms, Colin? That's what you lift in the gym, son.
Come on. Pudge is on the 8 kilogram dumbbells like he was in for 2 hours.
34 pounds, 2.5 stone.
2.5
so
stone.
There you go. I mean, that's almost.
What's that in kilos?
I don't know. What's that in metric?
I think it's probably the same weight as Pudge's biceps together, you know.
Listen, don't give listeners a false impression. I've not been in the gym for like 18 months throughout all this. I've only just started going back. I'll be lifting like 2.5.
Brilliant.
Never lose it.
Never lose it.
No.
Listen, Bob, you'll need to cut this obviously because I realised that we never spoke about most memorable major, so we'll just do that at the end.
Well, no,
right?
I was going to say, so just go back through and then say, right, now that we've gone through the majors, pick your most memorable and we'll go top down for you doing Masters. We'll just cut it.
Perfect.
Skilled at this.
Excellent. So, the US Open, lads, the United States Open Championship. Third major now, of course, taking place in June. The venue, unlike obviously Augusta, changes every year. Traditionally, probably known in the game and amongst the professionals as the toughest of all four, and it's the only major staged by the USGA, the United States Golf Association, as well instead of the PGA. So it sparked a wee bit of controversy along the years. I think probably most recently was it Chambers Bay, lads? Was it over on the West Coast? Remember when they visited that for the first time, and it was just completely browned out, tricked up, and it took a lot of stick. But I think players believe that it's often set up too difficult, resulting in probably the hardest test out of all the four majors. And I think in past the US have been what would you say? Attacked for going after this level par must win the tournament kind of thing and going after that. But listen, Rambo, a European victory. We can't ask for much more than that. But chat a wee bit about that before the venue. Torrey Pines gets a bit of stick. I don't know if you've seen that. Obviously, California course, but it gets a wee bit of stick for being one of the most scenic courses, but the layout of the course doesn't take advantage and lend itself to using the terrain as much as it should. Is that right, Bob?
The natural aesthetics, Colin.
Correct.
Well, I mean, it sits down the coast of La Jolla for any Beach Boys fans, Surfing USA. I'll cut that part out, don't worry. The course sits across the coastline, obviously on the cliff edge, but there's only two holes, I think, that actually run down there. The rest of it looks like it's pretty much sitting inside shrubland and sporadically spattered with trees. And when you look at I think it's at holes 11, 12, 13, it's like there's a business park at the side, there's the hospital. Like, I did have it down as one of my questions was actually, does anybody really rate Torrey Pines as a viewing course? Because if you're a spectator, the way the land cuts in, you can't walk the course the way you can the traditional course. You can't follow 9 holes and maybe double back and chase a few different holes and cut across, because you're stuck with these massive cliff edges that actually just look like the runoff of, like I said, shrubland. So watching it this year, it was probably the first year I really paid any attention to Torrey Pines as a venue, and don't really think it would be on my list of places to visit.
No, I mean, I think they play there's another tournament there called the Farmers, I think the Insurance Open, that they play over both courses, the north and the south. And when you see them on the telly, you know, the second course, I think it's the north course, isn't it? You know, aesthetically it didn't look great. It's been classed as, what would you say, not really architecturally sophisticated compared to the other US Opens that they play on. But listen, Rambo, what a victory! There's no doubt about that, and we'll come on to it because he had an amazing year in the majors. Better or maybe not as good as Louis. We'll have that wee debate when we come to it. But are the USGA still obsessed with thick, rough and lightning greens and par being the winning score?
I don't
not
think
so much
they are.
now.
Well, no, I don't see it. I think again, for me, player powers won the day there to some degree, and Phil is probably a big part in that because I think he's had quite a lot of clout over the years. But you know, as he rightly has earned from his career and performances and whatnot, stature in the game. But I've got to say, I vastly prefer a US Open where it is, a par winning score and the rough is up and the fairways are tight, and it puts a premium on finding the fairway, finding the green. I don't like that at Paul. I hate that at Paul. But for professionals, yes, I would expect them to have to hit fairways and greens and hole putts to win their major, and not just bomb and gouge as old BDC did the year before.
Correct, that was right enough. It was that winged foot, wasn't it? But the winner, John Rahm, he stole it for Louis' grasp, didn't he? Because if I remember, I couldn't see the highlights, but did he not hold like two pretty good putts on the last two greens?
The last two, last two hole putts were ridiculous in terms of obviously the pressure to win your first major, but the break on them was like 3-4 feet left to right as well. That's kind of traditional break that we don't particularly like. You'd rather be at a right to lefter, and to roll them in never looked like missing showed some set of balls, to be honest. And he definitely, and Oosthuizen just didn't look like. Well, we might discuss it. It doesn't look like he's got the killer instinct to actually see out a win and see out the tournament. And Ram certainly deserved it.
So much so that he laid up. Remember, he had to ego the last, and I'm pretty sure he laid up.
He laid up. So he laid up into the rough.
Tried to hold his 50-yard pitch shot to force a playoff. But Bob, what did you think of the tournament?
Well, there was a couple of really good stories that came with the US Open this year, and the first of those again was who was the 36-hole leader. It was probably a tournament Thursday, Friday. It maybe had a few more people engaged in it over this side of the pond. It
was a guy who had his first win at 48 on the European Tour this year. I'm pretty sure.
It was
Richard Bland.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it was 4 or 5 under or something. Was it?
He was 36-hole leader, Richard Bland, 5 under, with Russell Henley. And we were talking about Louis there. I think Louis obviously, was the case for a couple of the majors this year. I think his putter deserted him on the last day, and I think also his driving ability, the tee shot at 17 obviously cost him dearly, but he actually had a putt for 12 feet to get par at 17, which when he birdied the last would have ended up tying and forcing a playoff. So in the end, actually, the layup at 18 obviously was a strange one, but the putt at 17, despite having found the hazard off the tee on the left, that sort of 12-foot putt, that was the difference. And as Sminky said, John Rahm held 2 on the way back in at 17 and 18, and that won him it.
As you say, I think last round it's why he's not won enough. I think in the last round his putting changes, whether he gets a bit more tentative or whatever it is. And I do think also, as glorious as his swing is to look at, I think it perhaps relies more on timing than a lot of others, and his timing just goes ever so slightly out when he's under the gun, and he starts to have misses and whatnot that he doesn't have in the first 3 rounds as much. I think he maybe suffers from a bit of kind of pressure, anxiety. It's observational stuff, but
I think it's well known that he's used mind coaches and everything else in the past. Something about, I think, a red dot on his glove that he uses as part of his pre-shot routine. He's talked about. So no, he's got one of the best swings in the game. Let's face it, he swings it better and strikes it as good as anybody else out there. And we'll have a wee chat about his performances, because he very rarely ventured out the top 5. But US Open, an amazing year this year. Where does it head next year, lads? Just out of interest, the last big tournament to be held there was 1999. That we would be quite familiar with.
It's going to Brookline.
Well played. Excellent. No, I didn't think that. I was amazed when
First time it's ever had a US Open as well, Brookline.
Is that right?
Yeah, and I was going to say two other quick points in note column before we wrap up on this year's US Open. Rory McIlroy, with just a few holes to go, was actually, and again, when you look back at the weekend's play, for somebody again whose season pretty much petered out into nothing, he was still in that tournament and was only one shot behind, but just going into the turn. And the other thing is, can anybody tell me what Bryson De Chambeau's back nine was on Sunday?
42?
44. I mean,
44.
that's right out the Robert Stoddart School of Golf. That meltdown he had a 7 and an 8 in the space of a few holes was quite good to watch, actually.
44 is good for you.
Oh, it'd be tremendous for me,
I'm not sure he lost the ball, though, did he? I mean, you'd lose maybe a couple of balls in a 44 back nine.
I'd be at least 3 or 4 balls down. Just a wee pause. Sminky, I think the scratching's your microphone piece here. See the headset?
I think so. Yeah.
I think it's...
I'll just...
No, I don't know. It might be, but I don't know if you guys are picking up the same scratchy noises as me.
Is it the zip on your top?
Might be on the top, aye. There we go.
That's it.
I'll let it hang loose.
That's it. We're good. Right, sorry.
Let it hang
Continue.
loose. Right, anything else to add on the US Open?
No, I think we've done it to death, Colin.
The Open Championship 2021, obviously Royal St George's. Now, it was delayed, of course, for a year after the 2020 event was cancelled due to COVID. The only major out of the 4 that decided that not holding the event in 2020 was the best option. And Colin Morikawa takes the claret jug. He won by 2 from Jordan Spieth. Never shot higher than a 68 all week. What was unique about Morikawa's win at the Open and his win at the PGA the year prior? First week quiz question on the Open Championship. Anybody know?
One on his debut in those events.
Well played, Sminker.
Wow.
Excellent. Well played. Royal St George's, Sminky. The course is only 7,200 yards, right? Now, they played it in flat, calm conditions with quite firm fairways. Those boys are just ripping that to shreds. I mean, what won it? Was it 15 under? I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, these like most links courses, or certainly the Open courses these guys play, even though they're playing them in the height of summer, they're dependent on the elements to kind of protect them somewhat. We see the scores that the guys have at St Andrews now. They can rip it apart. So yeah, you're actually, when it comes to an Open, when you're watching it, you're actually hoping for some tough conditions. When it's predicted pretty flat calm, then the guys are so good now that they can, as I say, they can just almost make a mockery of these courses now. But yeah, Morikawa's very impressive. I think he won by a couple. Yeah. I think Spieth, resurgence, turn to form, and Louis was obviously in there again. I think Oosthuizen was leading going into the last round, but again, faltered somewhat. But I think Morikawa, his iron play was faultless.
I remember, Smink.
Don't think I had a bogey, and I think it was almost from about the 4th or 5th hole on the Saturday.
That's right.
Right through to obviously the 18th on Sunday. I don't think he had a bogey. So, very impressive.
What I remember about Morikawa, though, is it wasn't easy for him on the final day. If you watched it from start to finish, I remember in the middle of the round, start at the back 9, actually, maybe 10, 11, 20, he made some amazing up and downs from places that you would say that was automatic bogey. He just kept on holing 10-footer after 10-footer after 10-footer. Because Spieth looked like, Spieth looked like he was going to be right in it. But Morikawa just held on. And what a player he is. But listen, I mean, they played it in flat calm conditions. I mean, I think the Royal Nation have a tough job, because Carnoustie in '99, remember they got slated when Laurie won, when the rough was really high, but the weather was horrific. If you remember rightly, it was 15, 20 mile an hour winds. Now, if that had been flat calm that week, I'm pretty sure the heavy rough wouldn't have been an issue. So the Royal and Ancient, I'm guessing, have got to set up a course that won't make the players look silly if the wind blows at like 30 mile an hour. But when you get a flat calm week like they did this year, the boys are playing a firm 7,200 yard golf course. It's probably playing more like 6-7, 6-8 to them, which is just a birdie fest when the course is in that decent conditions. So, but I love it. It's it's the Open Championship. What's the best venue for the Open, lads? St Andrews, we know is the home of golf, right? But you've got so many great links courses. what's the best venue that's currently on the Open rota? For viewing, for challenge, when you're taking it all together, Poots.
I think challenge-wise, the one that seems to, you wouldn't even say it necessarily finds, the best golf in the world at the time, but I think Carnoustie stands alone in difficulty compared with the rest of them. Certainly seems to do. I always thought St George's was up there with the tough ones, and yeah, maybe it was just a freak this year with the weather. Again, I go back to the criticism that Carnoustie took in '99 and how it was set up. I think the Army ever since then have kind of stepped away from setting it up really, really as tough as they could. And I'd probably like to see them go back to a bit more difficulty, a bit more hay that's properly, getting it out. Finding it's a problem, but getting it out's another.
Yeah. I think Carnoustie was the catalyst for the Arnie being more actively involved in preparation and course setup. I think there was more local control up until Carnoustie, and thereafter they became more active in it, which is probably why you'll see that.
Why? I mean, they've got their rota, right? And I'm not sure that's going to change. I don't think Turnberry is going to come back on, whilst it's still part of a certain management portfolio,
which is a big shame, by the way. Because it's a great course. It's a great course. And Colin, I actually had it down for later. I'm sorry to jump in, but I don't think we've got the venue confirmed for the Scottish Open this year, which is obviously, or the Genesis Scottish Open, which is obviously a co-sanction with the PGA. Why on earth would we not take it to Turnberry?
True. No, very true. There is a lot of politics. There's a lot of money involved as well. Renaissance, whilst it's a good course, I'm sure we had the chat on many a podcast ago saying it's a good golf course, but is it a proper links course? Probably not. And are there better options out there? Potentially. But if you could add a UK venue to the Open rota that's not currently on there, would there be one that would stand out? Poods, we played one a few months back in June.
Yeah.
The golf course is there, and it's Sminky, you were there as well. It's an amazing golf course in Royal Dornoch. But are there deserving courses that should be up for inclusion, at least, or to be considered, or is it all about logistics and ensuring that you have everything else in place and not just the golf course?
I think you could. The way things are going, that the length of the current courses on the rota isn't really making that much of a difference. Could you bring somewhere like Prestwick back into play, for example?
Too short.
Possibly. Dornoch, I don't think. I mean, they always said the Open would struggle to go to Portrush because it didn't have the infrastructure, and I think they actually invested a huge amount of money in infrastructure at Portrush that I don't think they could do with Dornoch. But again, would it be any more or less of a test than the likes of the old course these days? I would say it would challenge just as much as probably Royal Aberdeen, Nairn. If they set the courses up in a particular way, I think there's a lot that could, purely from a course layout and the tradition standpoint, have it. And there's probably a lot in England that I'm completely ignorant of, and indeed Wales. The Opens. Yeah. Don't think the Open's ever necessarily been to Royal Porthcawl, for example.
That's a good question, actually. We'll need.
I think it has once,
maybe
once.
Back. But again, that's probably one of Wales' most famous links courses, and there's probably many others, and there'll be many up the west coast and the east coast that could be used. You wonder how they came up with the courses that are on the current rota. How did they decide those are the 6, 7, 8, 9 courses that we take the Open to?
Well, it's a good question. And Muirfield was nearly coming off it, wasn't it? A few years back. So I'm glad that's stayed on there, because that is certainly one of the top courses on the rota.
They've not confirmed it though for anything, and they've got the ladies next year at Muirfield. So I'll be keen to see whether on the back of that they put Muirfield back on. It's not scheduled for anything, and I do think
that's the last one is then Phil, when Phil won in 2013, then wasn't it? Which was 8 years ago. So
there's nothing penciled in, and I think to answer your question, I think there's two perfectly good golf courses not currently penciled on the rota, and that's Turnberry and Muirfield, and maybe that's bias for being up here and having played them. I do think they're a miss.
Yeah. I don't think we need any more on the rota. I think there's enough courses. We get few enough visits to courses. I personally don't think we should go to St Andrews every 5 years, but I know that's now set in stone, that's what we'll do. But there's so many good courses that are already there that you only maybe go to them once every 10, 15 years. So I personally don't think there's any need or any courses that are hugely deserving of getting added on to the
Could
rota.
they change that decision on St Andrews if they absolutely tear it apart next year? It'll be the first time that they've had it really with probably the current distance issues. We spoke about a few weeks ago. I mean, they might end up reversing that and thinking every 5 years do we want an Open that's blown apart?
Yeah.
No, I think if it does get torn apart, the noise and the crescendo of that whole debate around distance will ultimately it'll come to a head sooner rather than later. It's come to a bit of a head already. You know, Phil was really unhappy with this restriction on the length of drivers, which, you know, frankly, I have absolutely no argument with at all. But I think ultimately it's the ball, not the clubs, that is now going so far. And again, it's money that's driving that. But I think at some point that is going to have to be reined in, because you just can't have these courses being obsolete.
No.
You just can't.
I mean, Bryson's going to be trying to drive holes at 400 yards plus if he's got a wee tailwind. It's going to be interesting for sure. I mean, St Andrews, it's too epic a place in a golf course for 25 under or something to be winning. So we'll be praying for, you know, at least a decent stiff breeze to make conditions a wee bit more challenging. Right, lads, a quick around the table for our most memorable majors. Sminky, we'll work back the way. Open Championship. What's your most memorable Open Championship for all your viewing over the years?
I would actually go back to one we've talked about in 99.
99.
I know that the setup was widely criticised, but from a viewing perspective, I mean, you had Sergio Garcia shot 89 in the first round.
That's right.
You know, you had guys really, really struggling, and then Laurie 10 back going into the last round. Van de Velde's collapse, even Van de Velde holding that up part 18 to get into the playoff, and then the playoff itself, Laurie hitting those two unbelievable long iron shots into 17 and 18, but just quite often forgot how good he played the last two holes. It's very much remembered that Van de Velde kind of threw it away, but Laurie won it on, you know, those last couple of holes, the way he played. I mean, and you can't imagine the pressure he's under. I mean, at that point, very much a journeyman pro, really. I mean, nobody really had heard of him, and to finish the way he did. So, and all my years kind of viewing, I think for me that was the most memorable one.
I'll give you that.
Forget as well, Justin Leonard played his way into that playoff as well.
Yeah,
it was, you know, everybody just associates it with Van de Velde, but actually there was more than just that going on at the time.
There's the great story of the late Adam Hunter, who was Paul Laurie's coach at that time when Laurie came off the last, and Adam Hunter said to him, "Go and hit some balls." But Laurie was like, "But I'm like 6 behind or something." He was like, "Go and hit some balls. There's still an opportunity here." And of course, the rest is history. US Open, Bob, most memorable.
I'll try and be quick because I did a wee blog series that's coming out soon on our website called, so I'm going to plug that because I went back and had a look at some of the great nearly men of major golf, and our website launching very soon. We'll put that out, but as a result of that, I've kind of gone back through, and I don't know whether it's more memorable because I've done that exercise or whether actually it's memorable because I remembered seeing it at the time. But the one that sticks out in my mind is the 2008 Rocco Mediate Tiger Woods duel. And again, I know we sat and watched a documentary in the States on with I think it was Feherty with Rocco Mediate when we were out there on Golf Channel. And a fascinating tournament in the end, where the two of them obviously are neck and neck for 72 holes. Tiger has to birdie the 72nd hole to make a playoff. With the US Open, it's an 18-hole playoff. They play 18 holes, neck and neck.
On one leg.
Tiger has to birdie 18 again to keep it going, and then takes them on the first extra playoff hole. So they go 91 holes. I think that was the one that made Tiger's third career Grand Slam. So it was like his third time doing all four. And then, if I'm not mistaken, it was also where it turned out he'd been playing with a broken leg or a fracture to his leg through the whole event. So I remember it at the time, but I probably think more of it now as a result of having watched it more recently and done a wee bit of research on it. But I think you'd be hard pressed to find a better US Open for being enthralled the whole way through it. And Rocco Mediate, to his credit, had, I guess you could say a journeyman in some regards, successful in his own right. But I mean, he was leading that event for most of the last day, and it only took it took Tiger birdie in the last to take it from him. And
funnily enough, played on a course that we've just said doesn't
no, it's true.
Get the best reviews either.
Exactly. Yeah.
Torrey Pines. No, I remember that one vividly. That putt that he holds to get in the playoff, and the camera pans back to Rocco Mediate, who just goes, "I knew he'd make that," because that's just what Tiger did back in the day. He just made every putt he looked at when it was for something important. The USPGA lads, I picked out two. There was one that I remember watching as a 10-year-old youngster with my dad. The USPGA
was that in black and white?
Black and white, mate. 1991. We had just got a telly, actually. And he won. And John Daly was like someone like ninth alternate. Drove through the night after finding out that he had all got into the tournament, and then goes out and wins it. But I don't remember much of the actual golf. So the one, and without doing any research at all, the one that I remember most vividly was Valhalla in 2000, when Tiger and Bob May went head-to-head. I think they both finished at 18 under, which was a new record at that time. And it was only ever going to be between the two of them, because I think big Tommy Bjorn, he was third, like 5 or 6 shots back. And of course, Tiger beat May in that kind of 3-hole playoff. And it was one of most Tiger's iconic celebrations that I remember on the first extra hole, when he holed for like 40 feet and ran after it, pointing at the hole as the ball dropped in. It was amazing. And of course, that was his third major on the bounce, because he'd won at Pebble, he'd won at St Andrews, and then he won the USPGA, and then he obviously completed what was known as the Tiger Slam, wasn't it? Because he won the Masters in 2001. So for me, that's it. There's probably been a few others, but when I thought about it, and I just say, what one do I remember right to the top of my memory, and that was it. Puds, final say on your most memorable Masters, sir. Which one?
There's a lot, mate.
There's too many to choose from, but which one just bounced straight to the top of your head?
The Masters are so many. You've got obviously Tiger against DeMarco, obviously the sort of lead in to this podcast, with the chip in at 16, just unbelievable. You've got Faldo and Norman. What was that? 1996, 6.
96. Yeah.
You've got Nicholas, who was obviously the oldest major winner. A bit before my time, really. I'd only be 5 in 1986. But that's a pretty iconic one. But I'm going for one that I didn't actually even watch the final round. So I was away over to Thailand to see the brother back in 2012, I want to say. And obviously Thailand being such a different time zone to Georgia, I got up at 5:30 in the morning Bangkok time and left the hotel in search of a bar to watch the end of the Masters. I never did find any bars to sit and watch the Masters in, but got some serious eye-opening...
Found some other things in Bangkok.
serious eye-opening Bangkok nights
down the Koh Sam Road.
just for wandering around at that time. The fact that they actually had water cannons out at that time of the morning, basically just washing away the stink from people who had been out partying the night before and whatnot. The streets just get a complete hose down in the morning. That was just bizarre. So yeah, Bubba beating Louis in the playoff in 2012, and I didn't even see it. But
that was with a
haven't
massive
watched it
hook
back.
around it.
Haven't watched it back. The Bubba's ridiculous bend on a pitching wedge, just frightening.
Yeah, remember that one for sure. Usti up there again. Can you believe it? Almost all those years ago. Here he is 9 years later, still at it. Right, a few quick fire questions just to end the major chat. Just an answer, a name, or yes or no. I'm around the table here. Right, Poods, best player never to have won a major.
Lee Westwood.
Okay, wow. Name Monty. Interesting.
Oh, all right.
I'm going
current players.
Current player. Right. Bob, who deserves to win a major before their career ends?
Oh, well, I think I would have said Lee Westwood, to be honest. Yep.
Okay. Sminky, who had the best year this year in majors? Oosthuizen or Ram? Here's the finishes, okay?
Ram.
Louis, tied 26 Masters, tied second PGA, second at the US Open, tied third Open. Ram, tied fifth Masters, tied eighth PGA, first at the US Open, obviously, and tied third at the Open. Ram?
Yeah, it's got to be Ram purely because
he
won one.
And he finished in the top 10 in every other one.
Yeah.
Top 5.
Yeah.
No, top 10, sorry. Excellent. Right, lads, that brings the major chat to an end. Thank you for your chat on that. Bermuda, it's just finished, lads. Just finished at the Port Royal Golf Club. A very different to the Port Royal that we played back in the day in the 9-hole par 3 down at Ingleston next to the airport.
Oh, remember that.
I've no.
That's a great golf course.
Aye, path every hole was about 50, 60 yards. Spent many a Friday night down there with the parents dropping us off and picking us back up a few hours later. I never managed to catch a lot of the event. It looked like it was blowing an absolute hoolie on the final day, and they teed off early to obviously try and avoid some of the weather. Who managed to catch anybody catch the last hour or so to see, was it Lucas Herbert win the title?
Yeah, I watched the last 4 or 5 holes call, so he finished brilliantly. Danny Lee kind of had a run of bogeys, 3 in a row on the back 9, but then had 3 birdies after that, so he got within 1. But then Herbert saw out of the last, but an overnight leader had a mare. I think he shot 5 over in the water twice at 17. So, and the guy who shot 61 on Friday shoots 76 on Sunday. But I know the conditions were pretty tough. But Patrick Reed came right into it as well. He had a great round as well.
Seemingly they were saying this, but the boy Tyler Pendrith,
yep,
is actually the longest hitter on tour. Longer than De Chambeau, longer than Cameron Champ. They seem to think this guy's he's now going to be the long dong.
Well, I mean, it's the first time I'd really seen him, and I probably can't critique anyone's golf swing too much, but it's a bit of a kind of funky movement on the butt. It's certainly not conventional. But he's a big guy. But he looked to get out of there. But he was, at 17, water down the left, he must have hit it 40 yards offline. He was so far in the water, and then he's drop out and hit it in the water again.
Ouch, oopsie. That is tough. But listen, I like these events. Quite a quirky looking golf course. Wind obviously plays a part. Not a great field, but I like that because it gives the journeyman pro and the newcomer, the chance to change their career path, change their life with one great week. Bob, you had mentioned obviously a couple of good field stories. Is that right?
Aye, and I do agree with you. I probably wouldn't normally pay much attention to these alternate events or end the season kind of fall series they call it, but they are game changing events for a lot of guys. And there's a good story with the chap David Skins, the English lad who just picked up his tour card after 17 years of grinding on multiple mini tours in the States. He was looking for a top 10 actually today. We'd have got him into the Mayakoba, finished I think 30 odd, but the other one that sticks out obviously was the club pro Brian Morris, who's obviously quite a lot of media attention. Chip, poor guy who's terminal cancer, get an entry in as a club pro through a sponsor's invite and get a couple of days out there playing on the tour. It was quite a nice little story. Obviously tough conditions, and again shows you as ever the difference between guys that are professional golfers maybe at a club level versus tour players, because he was 41 shots outside the cut line. But nice story. My one stick out of watching the TV is Aaron Rai on Saturday. What was it, Friday? What was he wearing? Did anybody see Aaron Rai's Adidas 3-stripe pinstripe trousers like the old trackies you had in the 90s?
I did see that. I did see that, yeah.
Coupled with his Tommy Two gloves.
Awful.
He is a Tommy Two glove, isn't he?
Absolutely awful.
I'll tell you the one thing that's bizarre to me is that you would take an event to Bermuda at this time of year, because the weather can't possibly be anywhere near its best at this time of year. So it seems such a strange place to have a tournament at the end of October.
And the thing is, you say that, and then you look at the scores that won it. I mean, as much as it was a challenging day, they still get 15 under and tough wins over as a winning score.
But they said it was the shortest course. It's the shortest course on the tour.
Yeah,
is that right? Didn't know that. The other point to note, Colin, Jim Nouse,
Jimmy Harkey,
Jim Nouse, whose name has obviously been a favourite of ours for a while, but having to hole, probably what, a 15-footer on Friday evening to make the cut, which guaranteed him at least to keep his Corn Ferry status as a fully fledged player, and then also gave him or retained his provisional PGA status. So massive for guys like that, these events, just to keep themselves going. And I've got to credit the guy, I've mentioned him a few times, Ryan French, Monday Q Info, who's fantastic at bringing all these stories to life. I think if you ever want to go and find a little bit more about why it's worth watching some of the non-big events, this guy brings real life stories to life.
Brilliant. And just for our listeners, a quick thing, because you're probably wondering why nous is a word that we quite enjoy the use of. Quick story. When we were sitting at the airport over a beer before we flew out to a Pro-Am in 2013 to celebrate Robert turning 30, we all sat around the table and each said what we were bringing to the holiday itself. So I started off and says, well, lads, I've obviously brought the organisational aspect. Robert said he's bringing the logistics because he had obviously done all the planning for when we got over there. Ian said that he brought the professional side of things because obviously it was a Pro-Am. And we asked Poods what he brought to the table, and he said, I bring the financial nous. And that's
just Poods' way of saying he's just a tight bugger.
That's just Poods brought the financial nous. He controls the money when we go abroad and does a very, very good job. So nous is a word that's not used often but has stuck in our vocabulary between the group because it's just a good word, Poods, eh? And now there's a guy on the USPGA tour that we can follow who has the same.
Two fallacies in Robert there. One, I'm not tight in the slightest because if something was worth spending money on, I will spend the money.
Frugal.
It's all about value.
It's all about value. Just ask Scotty McKinnon what's value's all about. And second one, if you're going to go into tight, you really got to focus on AC Stevenson in Portugal, where we had about a €300 meal between 12 hours one night, something like that. And he left.
No, it was 200. It was 298
Well, it was
euros.
297 euros, and he left them €3 of a tip.
Oh man, AC Stevenson is Graham's older brother, just in case listeners.
And then he used the motor line. We better get out of here, lads. How I've left my €3 tip.
That's
brilliant. Pays €90 for a game of golf, but €3 for a.
He's not paid €90 for a game of golf either, I can assure you.
And not only that, but he was also notorious for keeping the kitty out after everyone else had gone to their bed, and him and Big Rennie would destroy the kitty, just the two of them, for about another 2 hours while everybody else was sleeping.
Brilliant. I'm sure.
Hence why you stole the kitty on the last night.
But lads, we could obviously talk about our escapades abroad on in golf holidays for a long time, but let's go back to the ladies' tour, because they were in Dubai, the Moonlight Classic, under the floodlights at the Emirates Golf Club on the Faldo course. Bronte Law, amazing last round, 64, so she had a one-shot victory. Quite a unique event. All 3 rounds under the floodlights. Poods, is that on your bucket list, from night golf at Deer Park to night golf in Dubai?
You
look to play. I would love to play it. I've got to admit.
I would probably like to go and play golf in Dubai, but as a place I have visited, it's not really my cup of tea.
Okay, Bob, did you watch much of the action on the box?
I did, actually, believe it or not, because there wasn't much else to watch golf-wise, and I was quite intrigued to see what it was like. A couple of observations. I don't know how they can enjoy putting with those big long shadows across the green. I mean, my putting's bad enough in plain daylight. I can only imagine that becomes a bit of a pest. Other things I pick up on, again, music. Great. It looks a great night. It looks a cracking, you've got lots on, but I was amazed to watch them putting with Kings of Leon just blaring in the background, which you don't often see. However, good choice of songs. But when it comes to the actual tournament, the last round, Maria Fassi, that's the first time I've probably sat and watched her. She can hit it. She has got some length on her off the tee, and as a cracking ball striker. But you already mentioned it. Bronte Law, six birdies in 7 holes to come and steal it.
And to be honest, it should have been 7. Well, she obviously eagled 16 and then hit it. She pretty much hit it stiff at 17 and missed it, and it didn't actually matter by that point. But that would have been another birdie to just have a ludicrous, back 9 as it was.
She's some player.
And she pretty much came for nowhere really with that blitz and Fassi. I did watch bits of it because it was on at tea time each night that it was on, and Fassi in the last round again just kind of started playing defensively. So I think she shot 61 in the first round or something like that, and then she didn't make a huge amount of progress, over the final 2 rounds in terms of keeping that up with it. Admittedly, you can't just shoot 61 all the time, but I got the feeling that because she was a bit nervous, she hasn't won before, Law hadn't won before either, but Fassi seemed to play a bit defensively and ultimately paid the price against somebody that was just going for her shots.
And to be fair to Fassi, I mean, she had a final round 68. It's not like she left it out there. And
she didn't play badly. I just don't. When I was watching it, I just felt like she wasn't play. As you said, she was bombing it out there. She was going in with short distance a lot of time, and I didn't feel like she was being aggressive enough.
She's going to be up at the top of the game for a long time. But good on Bronte Law. I like Bronte Law as well. She reminds me a wee bit of Ian Poulter. She's got that fire. I don't know if you remember at the 2019 Solheim Cup when she held a few putts. That she's got that steely.
She's
look.
Got some swagger.
She's got a swagger like she has.
She looks like she's about to walk into a boxing ring. She's got that kind of sort of almost fists up swagger on the go.
Wouldn't want to take her on for a few quid for sure. Gents, did you see the news this week about a certain Mr. Greg Norman, who has been named as the CEO of LIV Golf Enterprises? So a newly formed company backed by Saudi money, who have said they want to revolutionise professional golf across the world, committing more than $200 million to 10 new Asian Tour events that will be staged annually over the next decade. Did anybody get a read at the articles that were all across social media? Bob, we'll start with you then. You nodded. What's your thoughts? Is this it's the same investment fund, I think, that helped bankroll the recent takeover in Newcastle United? Is that right?
I think so. It's the Saudi government, essentially. But they obviously were linked with some form of Super League golf. But I think the Premier Golf League guys have broken away from being associated with them and have probably got other plans. They've obviously saw a gap in the Asian Tour market because they know the European Tour and the PGA Tour, you're not even getting close to that, and putting the investment in. But I think we all know what it is. And I think probably anybody worth any kind of self-respect sees it as quite clearly sports washing. But to the same extent, Asian Tour, Lee spoke about it last week, a tour that's got good players in it, Probably a real opportunity to grow a game out there in terms of creating a competitive tour. But I think there's probably a few people see it for what it is, and probably doesn't make Greg Norman look particularly smart either.
Well, that's a good question.
That's for me not the right way to be looking at it at all. And Gary Neville made exactly the same point on Monday Night Football a couple of weeks ago, that you can call it sports washing and say, Saudi money is not welcome and human rights, blah, blah, blah. His point was that actually the more they put themselves out there, the more they actually draw attention to themselves, which should then in turn lead to change.
No.
With it, there should be then pressure put upon them to allegedly improve, their human rights record and all the rest of it. And as I said, I don't see how anybody in the West can point fingers from where the West has come from where the West started, from where America started, from where Europe started. It was all about...
Where you come from and where you're at now are always based on learning lessons, and hindsight's a wonderful thing, but when I think you're in a world...
You maybe just need to give Saudi a bit longer to learn the lesson.
Sminky, why?
Thing is this the best he can do, though? I mean, Greg Norman is not relevant in golf anymore. He's not been a top-level player for 25 years. And is it
because 20 years ago, Sminky, I was going to ask you that question. I was going to say, why Greg Norman? Is it because 20 years ago or 30 years ago, he was all over starting this world tour, wasn't he? So,
yeah,
and that
was his big thing. And I know, him and I think it was Tim Fincham at the time, the PGA Tour Commissioner, they had a bit of a war of words because Norman was very much on this world tour, and that's what he saw as the future. And I mean, the tours are, the way they're so aligned and the way they go, we're not far off a world tour anyway.
You're right.
And in terms of where they go and the alignment, but it just seems a bit. I'm not really sure what's in it for Greg Norman. I don't really know why he's decided to get involved, other than because he thought this was a good idea 25 years ago.
He's building courses out in Saudi though as well, isn't he?
Yeah. It seems potentially what's in it for him.
Yeah. For me,
is it for the good of the game, or is it for the good of Greg Norman?
For me, it would have to involve better golf courses than the US PGA Tour is offering up every week. For me, that's the only way it's going to succeed. Better golf courses to play than some of the US Tour courses.
And that's tough. But I mean, they're building some amazing courses, absolutely. So there's a chance. There's obviously the Premier Golf League that's been talked about as well, between that and this new Saudi-backed investment fund. We'll just need to wait and see what happens. But right now, European Tour, PGA Tour, I'm happy with that, and I'll watch Asian Tour and Japanese Tour whenever it's on the boxes as well. So we'll just wait and see how it's obviously in very, very early stages. It's just made its way into the news just now, but we'll see how things develop over the coming months. Right, lads, that's us nearly at the end. We're going to finish off though, because Sminky, you are a special guest tonight at the end of the day. We've had Tatey on, we've had Lee Rind on. 10 quickfire questions coming your way. Are you ready?
Go for it.
Okay, mate. Favourite golfer?
Tom Watson.
Favourite golf course?
Royal Upall or Carnoustie.
Bucket list golf course you want to play?
I've got two, Augusta, and I played the old Tunbury before it got redesigned, so I'd love to play it. Now it's been changed.
Ultimate 4-ball.
Seve, Tom Watson, and John Daly.
Yes, okay. Best memory playing golf?
Probably shooting the course record up, Paul.
Excellent.
Equaling it, obviously, with you, Leroy, and now Paul Drake. 3 great players.
Indeed. Masters or the Open?
Masters.
Woods or Nicklaus?
Jack.
Limit equipment or toughen up golf courses?
You've got to limit equipment. You can't just keep either. You're going to run out of room for golf courses, and it's the ball's the problem.
Football team?
Aberdeen.
And favourite tipple?
Currently any kind of pale ale.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you, Spinky. Great to have you on, lads. That brings another podcast to a close. That's been a quick, nearly an hour and a half. Wow. Bob, you might have some editing to do, sir. Thank you to Puds, Bob and to Spinky, our special guest. Before we finish up, gents, anything else to add to this week's podcast?
Only that Sminky's now one appearance away from his match ball.
Indeed.
I'm going to save my topic for next time.
Excellent, Puds. That'll make sure our listeners tune in next week. Puds' rant coming to you next week, folks. Enjoy the golf viewing this weekend. The European Tour is in Portugal this week. The PGA Tour ventures to Mexico for the Mayakoba, and Ladies European Tour heads to Saudi to Royal.
Point of order on that one, Colin. You obviously all decided to put me on the spot last week about picking a player for Portugal, failing to recognise the fact that obviously people were free to withdraw for quite some time, and apparently Paul Waring is not going to Portugal, according to Huggy. Okay. So I will be picking another, and I don't have it right now, but you will be getting a different name.
No problem. Rounds Golf team, it's been a pleasure. I'll see you soon. And remember, listeners, log on to website, roundsgolf.co.uk, follow on all the usual social channels, and thank you for listening. Take care. Cheers, lads.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Stay classy.
Cheers.